Good evening, my friends. CNN's parent company, WarnerMedia and Discovery Channel, will merge next year. But will President Jeff Zucker be at the helm or even part of the merged company? Only time will tell. Given the scandals of sexual misconduct on his watch with Chris Cuomo and Don Lemon, it may be hard for the top execs to justify his participation in the new company. Okay, my friends, let's take a closer look together. Welcome to The Eye Opener. I'm your host, Michael Lewis. CNN's parent company, WarnerMedia and Discovery Channel, are set to merge next year in a multi-billion-dollar merger. The big question is, what role scandal-ridden CNN boss Jeff Zucker will play in the merged company? More revelations show that Zucker was largely aware of Chris Cuomo's scandal, but still shielded him. It was only last week that Zucker had no choice but to fire Cuomo when documents revealed his involvement in his brother's scandal was much greater than previously thought, and when a woman accused him of sexual misconduct. 2021 was disastrous for CNN, a scandal-ridden and ratings-deprived network. In addition to the Cuomo scandal, another host, Don Lemon, will face accusations of sexual assault in court next year. Viewers are abandoning CNN in droves, and while it is not yet known what role Zucker will play in the merged company, one thing is for sure, he is no longer the supreme ruler. Something that was clear when they made him fire Cuomo. He has turned CNN into a far-left partisan media outlet and has taken the embarrassing sides for liberals like Cuomo, Don Lemon, and Jim Acosta. Hardline liberal media chairman John Malone, who sits on the board of Discovery Communications, Inc., is considered highly influential in the industry, recently said he hopes CNN will return to its hard news roots in the pre-Zucker era of nonpartisan journalism. The past few years have seen an unprecedented challenge to free speech in the U.S., with the strong rise of big tech and corporate wokeism increasingly intervening in politics and stifling conservative speech that they disagree with. While the right complains about the censorship that prohibits any dissemination of the news that contradicts the left's narrative, the left has a common narrative: go build your own social media and tell your version in your own place. But when conservatives did get around to setting up their own social media, those on the left with notions of controlling speech were terrified. They knew that the good old days of being able to make up lies and control other people's speech were coming to an end. These far leftists colluded to ban the president from using social media, while Iran's supreme leader still posts anti-Semitic diatribes on a regular basis. The Taliban is allowed to have Twitter accounts, while mainstream conservatives are kicked off the platform for stating the basic fact that a man is not a woman. In such a hostile public environment, do conservatives sit on their hands? No, of course not. If you won't let me speak on your platform, then I'll speak on the platform I built. It is only natural that conservatives develop their own websites and platforms to compete with those who stifle freedom. Truth Social, the media platform built by President Trump, will be making its official debut in the new year. The outlet declared on its website that the media pendulum swung dangerously to the left in 2021. Silicon Valley mainstream media and big tech are forcibly silencing voices that do not conform to their far-left ideology. Big tech platforms are smearing, stifling, and canceling those who stray from the mainstream narrative. They're not just censoring content, they're deciding what can and can't be said. By controlling the way information is shared, they control the narrative, they control the future, they control you. To counter this dangerous exercise of big tech monopoly power, Trump and Trump Media and Technology Group, TMTG, are building a media and technology company rooted in social media, digital streaming, and more. TMTG intends to level the playing field by providing people with an open media platform that allows them to share and create content without fear of retribution. A leftist by the name of Sarah Fisher said that the right-wing media was thriving because of the left's dictatorship. She used analytical examples from right-leaning app downloads to conservative video sites to illustrate the entire conservative ecosystem that is forming and subverting big leftist media. The media controlled by the far-left forces have spent years trying to silence others, insisting that traditional conservatives find their own way. Don't be shocked one day when right-leaning media trumps those left fake media outlets. Representative Devin Nunes, a Republican from California, will resign from the House this month to take over as CEO of the Trump Media and Technology Group, TMTG, starting in January of 2022. He would have sought re-election in 2022, but redistricting in California will make the campaign much more difficult. His new district will flip from 5% of those who voted for Trump to 9% of those who voted for Biden. Nunes has played a major role in exposing the Russia scam, standing alone when other Republican lawmakers chose to close their eyes. While most Republicans were, as usual, eager to deliver their arguments, Nunes persevered. Some weak Republicans on the right, including David French, maligned him, calling for his resignation. In the end, Nunes' persistence prevailed. His uncovering of FISA abuses against Carter Page confirmed long-held suspicions and ultimately led to today's investigation by Special Counsel John Durham. History also shows that Nunes' memo on the Russiagate scam was far more accurate than the one introduced by Democratic Representative Adam Schiff. Former President Donald Trump welcomed Nunes to his firm, saying Nunes is a fighter and a leader. He will make a great CEO for TMTG because he understands that we must stop the liberal media and big corporations from destroying the freedoms that made America great. America is ready for a truth society and an end to censorship and political discrimination. Nunes said the time has come to reopen the flow of ideas and free speech without online censorship. He said that he is humbled and honored that President Trump has asked him to lead this mission and the world-class team that will deliver on that promise. Any Republican politician should understand that Republican voters want elected representatives who are not afraid to tear down the far-left falsehoods of the Democratic Party. The 2022 midterm elections are just around the corner, and the race for the governor in many states has already kicked off. Politico has evaluated the situation over the last year and compiled a list of what it believes are the most competitive states, including Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, and Nevada. These states are likely to have competitive and controversial races. Democrat Stacey Abrams has already announced that she will run again for the governorship of Georgia, and as one of the state's most divisive, but also most beloved figures on the left, the race is expected to be close. In Pennsylvania, it sounds as if it's not just a fight between Democrats and Republicans, but between Republicans and Republicans, as a large number of people have stepped forward to run for the office. Texas is not on that list. Presumably, Politico doesn't see Democratic challenger Beto O'Rourke as a threat to incumbent Republican Governor Greg Abbott. O'Rourke announced his candidacy in mid-November, and he's still gearing up for his campaign. There are no ads and no fundraising in sight. O'Rourke seems to be a man of no political views of his own. He will say whatever he needs to say to get people to like him. When he was a candidate for the Texas Senate, O'Rourke seemed a little more moderately left. But in Congress, on the national stage, he went to the extreme on the level of AOC, trying to appeal to far-left voters. After voters have seen his performance in Congress, it is a real conundrum why he is running for the state's top job. Of particular importance is the fact that Texas has always suffered from illegal immigration, and O'Rourke has taken some very leftist positions on this issue before. Democrats seem to be losing more and more ground in Texas as time goes on. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is looking for at least 10 Republicans to help Democrats raise the debt ceiling with a simple majority vote. In a deal with Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Republicans would give Democrats enough votes to change the rules, and then Democrats would pass a debt ceiling increase without Republican support. Because a total of 60 votes are required to change the Senate voting rules, at least 10 Republicans would have to agree to McConnell's strategy to get it done. That is, to circumvent the filibuster on raising the debt limit. Under the plan, the filibuster rule would be suspended for about a month, specifically for the debt limit. Democrats would then be asked to raise the debt limit to somewhere between $1.5 trillion and $2 trillion, which would avoid another debt ceiling vote until after next year's election. This is the way these corrupt politicians play the voters' game. Under this so-called strategy, the Democrats would be able to pass a debt limit increase with a simple majority, while enabling every Republican in the minority to vote against raising the debt limit. The Democrats win because the government can continue borrowing money to fund President Joe Biden's agenda. Republicans also win because they will claim they voted no on raising the debt limit, even though 10 of them will have to vote with Democrats to change the rules and enable the tactic. It is actually possible for Republicans to stop the Democrats from raising the debt ceiling. Republicans could oppose Congress raising the debt limit to force the federal government to cut back on setting spending priorities so that spending does not exceed revenues. This could mean deep cuts to programs popular with the far left of the Democratic Party. But these corrupt and weak Republicans, represented by Mitch McConnell, have always put their own positional interest ahead of the national interest, allowing the Biden administration's socialist far-left proposals to pass time and time again. So you will see that despite Republicans saying they are against excessive government borrowing and spending, a significant number always vote to raise the debt limit to avoid the political fallout from the government's inability to borrow more money. But will Senate Republicans agree to McConnell's plan? Some leading Republicans in the Senate have reportedly said they could live with the strategy, including Senator John Cornyn, Minority Whip John Thune, Shelley Moore Capito, Roger Wicker, and Roy Blunt. What would be the point of a Republican victory in next year's midterm elections, even if the GOP wins, but the establishment's corrupt swamp forces are not removed from the Republican Party? President Joe Biden's nominee for controller of the currency, Soleil Omarova, has dropped her candidacy after Republicans slammed her for past statements and writings that expressed extreme economic views. She originally worked at the Treasury Department under George W. Bush, but Republicans opposed to her nomination found evidence of her ideological sympathies with Marxism and communism. Omarova told a conference in March that if Americans want to address climate change, then many of those small businesses, mainly in the coal, oil, and gas industries, need to go out of business in the short term. Republican Senator Pat Toomey issued a statement in response to the withdrawal of Omarova's nomination. He said there was a bipartisan consensus that Professor Omarova's radical ideas for the U.S. financial system were not appropriate for the nation's top banking regulator. He hoped the Biden administration would choose a nominee with a mainstream view of the U.S. economy. The Biden administration on Monday released the first U.S. anti-corruption strategy. Biden established anti-corruption as a core national security interest on June 3rd, and he ordered his national security team to develop a comprehensive anti-corruption strategy. Once implemented, the strategy would improve the government's ability to prevent corruption, more effectively combat illicit financial practices, and hold corrupt individuals accountable. The central purpose of this 38-page anti-corruption strategy report is to elevate anti-corruption efforts to a priority across key departments and agencies of the federal government. It will also address corruption at a transnational level, working with other countries to hold corrupt individuals accountable by raising diplomatic efforts and using foreign assistance resources to reach their policy goals. Of particular note is the announcement by the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN, of a proposed regulation of all cash purchases of real estate. The initiative that would impose reporting requirements across the United States for transactions in residential properties priced over $300,000 in 12 metropolitan areas, as this is considered a significant source of corruption. However, at the international level, the biggest influencers of the strategy will be the CCP and its corrupt officials. This is reflected in three main areas. Number one, the main target of the strategy is the various infiltrations and corrupt practices in the international financial system represented by the CCP. If the policy objective can be achieved, the CCP's access to overseas transfusion funds would be drastically cut off. Accordingly, international capital giants would have fewer opportunities to make a fortune colluding with the CCP, and its influences on governments would be reduced. Number two, this strategy relies on cooperation with the G7 and G20 groups, which include all the most developed economies of the world, including China. The CCP will face a dilemma. If it does not comply with U.S. rules, it would certainly face being marginalized or out of the game. But if it complies, the CCP will be tied up and will lose the capital to establish another rule to compete with the U.S. for dominance. Number three, this strategy will impact the hidden wealth of senior CCP officials in the U.S. This would be a real nightmare for the CCP. Although this anti-corruption strategy looks pretty fierce, it is not yet known how far it will be implemented. But a few days ago, the SEC officially issued rules to implement the Holding Foreign Company Accountability Act, making Chinese concept stocks subject to strict financial scrutiny, which should also be part of this strategy. And that's it for today, my friends. Check out the playlist right here for more eye-opening content. You can join me in the Eye Opener Telegram chat room and follow me on Newmaker, Gab, Parler, and Getter. Now, don't forget, please sign up to the email list so that we can stay in touch. I'd like to thank you all, and I'll see you next time.